I could not tell you the number of times that I've had a piece of technology soft lock on me, get stuck in one spot, and maybe even do it again and again and again every time that I restart the game or the application or even the entire system, right? Similarly, I cannot tell you the number of times that I have gotten soft locked on my own creative process, right? The number of times that I've gone, I want to work on this thing, and then run into something that just gets me stuck. And I keep trying to work through it and trying to work through it and trying to work through it like a computer trying to run the same process over and over and over while it is stuck in an infinite loop or while it keeps hitting some kind of crash that it doesn't know how to communicate to you. So today is going to be about soft resets and getting stuck in a process and running into these barriers that will get you every time. First, let's talk about games because, as always, I'm going to use them as a metaphor for some creative processes. When you're playing a game, there are bugs that you can enjoy, and then there are bugs that drive you crazy. And the most annoying bugs are the ones that hinder your progress. Worst case, they destroy your progress. They get rid of everything you've worked on and make you start again from the beginning. Well, unless you're very zen and very chill, if you lose a 30-hour save file, you will probably go, screw this, I'm playing a different game, maybe I'll come back to this someday, but honestly, probably not. In contrast, if you have a bug where something very funny happens, you go, oh man, that's really funny. And then if you keep running into it and it gets annoying, you avoid it somehow or you figure out how to fix it, right? Like the old bug in Skyrim where the giant hits the ground in front of you and you go flying in an absurd way that they left in the game and went, no, 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 we like that. That wasn't a bug. That's working as intended, right? It is sometimes a wonderful thing to have a bug. But when it locks you out, it's an awful thing. And there are different kinds of bugs in the creative process, and we'll talk about that a little bit in the develop portion after the little musical interlude. So we'll get into that when we get there. Let's talk a little bit more about a different kind of bug, maybe a design flaw that we can use as a metaphor too, right? So maybe it's not a technical bug. Maybe it is a flaw in the game's design. Maybe it is something that you run into where there's just a huge difficulty spike, and there are ways around it. You can go into the wiki, you can mess with your characters and tweak them and so on. You can practice whatever skill it is that you need to get forward in the game, but one way or another, you are hitting this moment where everything gets exceedingly difficult, maybe even just because of bad communication. Now, that's the one that gets me, right? It can be a crazy difficulty spike, which everybody tends to go, oh yeah, the difficulty curve gets a little crazy there, right? Which to me implies that that's by design, unless it's for a really, really intentional reason. But if it is a communication difficulty spike, if you know what I'm saying, if it is a situation where they didn't tell you about this one skill that you can use, or nobody really made it clear to you that there's a reason for that skill that you ignored the entire game, and oh, this is when you can use it. If there's a wall that looks like a path or a path that looks like a wall, I remember this one spot why am I always referencing Final Fantasy, huh? I remember this one spot in Final Fantasy VIII where you're going through this kind of like crystalline looking area. And if you have the arrows turned off, there's this feature on a lot of old JRPGs where there's little arrows that show you where you can go into different zones, where you can transition between zones. And if you have those arrows turned off, you may think it's a wall, but it is in fact a path. It kind of looks like this weird ice pillar thing. And that's a very frustrating situation, right? There's stuff like that where it's just a hidden path forward. And you have to get a little hint about which way to go. This can also tie into game design. Sometimes you need a little hint about how to use the program that you're using, about how to move forward in this particular type of design. And that's where you can look at games that have come before you. You can even look at research papers. There are research papers about platformers and how to make a really satisfying jumping and landing sensation. And there's a surprising number of research papers about platformers. Actually, I'd encourage you to take a look into it. It's because because the genre has been around for so long and so many people have played it. But anyway, I digress. Let's get back to what we were saying about games. Another example of this is a game called Summoner. That is more of a niche title. I love that game, and I hate that game. There are things in the combat that I absolutely adore, and then there's a puzzle that I run into in that game that I have never been able to figure out. And before that puzzle, there was a little bug that I ran into. I think I may have mentioned this once in the podcast. There's a little bug that I ran into where if you're playing on PC, you cannot click past this one spot in order to move in a certain direction. It's very clear that you're supposed to be going down this path, but you can't click it. And I'd been using my mouse to move the entire time that I was playing the game, but if you use like WASD or arrows or something, I forget exactly what the controls were on that game, but if you use a different control scheme, a different method of input, then you can move through that area. It is in fact the only way to move forward, but you have to move forward one way and not the other way. There's just a different input that you have to use. So these are the ways that games lock you. And then there is the classic. There is the every single one of us has experienced it, soft lock, where it just freezes and it plays the same audio over and over and over and over again to the point of driving you completely insane, and you have to turn it off, and it's like you kind of hope that it's going to break through the soft lock, and it always tends to happen right after something really cool happens and you haven't saved your game yet, right? You're like, oh my god, I finally captured that thing that I've never caught before in Pokemon, right? You're like, I got a shiny, I got this, I got that, right? I got that legendary Pokemon, and I managed to do it using a Great Ball. Isn't that incredible? Oh, soft lock before you get a chance to save, right? Classic childhood experience. So there's that too. And all of this being said, I really, the reason I want to talk about this is not so much to dig into it on the game side of things. I want to dig into it when it comes to game development. Oh, one more on games. I'm sorry. I was just going to transition, but this came back to me. Text-based adventures. This is an example of a communication issue, but those old school text-based adventures where you have this problem of saying, I want to run away. And you type run away, and it goes, I don't know what command you mean. Do you mean walk? Do you mean leave? It's like it doesn't recognize every word in the English language, so you tell it one thing, and it goes, you must mean, I don't know what you mean. Best of all, the version where it has no idea what you're saying, and it just says command not recognized. Command not recognized. You try to say attack, and it wants you to say fight. You try to say, you try to say hit, and it says swing, those kind of things. You have to have the manual in front of you. You have to look at the recognized commands, but they're often puzzle games, so you kind of have to intuitively decide what the command is going to be. What a genre, right? They've got a lot of game ruining soft locks based on communication there. As I was saying, main point in this episode is not actually to talk about all these moments in games that we get stuck, though they are important, and they are important to consider in terms of design as well as in terms of enjoying a game. If you hit a soft lock of that kind, you got to know, excuse me, I got something in my throat there. You got to know when to look at a strategy guide, when to look at a wiki, when to look at something that is going to help you get past it, or ask a friend for help, right? Fair enough. Sometimes you're not cheating, you're just going, something's up here, let's move forward, right? Now, let's talk about how all of these things relate to game development, starting with the buggy soft locks and the bugs in my mind, and when it is a fun bug and when it is a really annoying, frustrating bug. There are a few bugs in my game development process that are a little quirky and fun and dumb and cool and whatever, right? I can spin them and go, oh no, that's just a little quirky thing about how I work. Yes, it loses me a ton of efficiency. Yes, the game lags when this happens. Yes, it is not working the way that it should, but the development process is still completely functional, and sometimes things get a little goofy, right? Maybe that is when I work on art, it's like it's gonna look terrible the first 7 attempts, right? Maybe it is something like, if I'm gonna work on this particular thing, honestly, it kind of only works if I'm outdoors. If I'm working on game design, I get a crazy boost outdoors. And why do I get a boost outdoors? I don't know. Somebody coded that in, right? Like if I'm sitting by a pond and the weather is nice, then I get a big boost to this. Otherwise, it's got like a slight minus to it, right? And then there are things like, every time that I try to focus on writing, I get distracted by other ideas. So I have to jot down other ideas and throw them off to the side somewhere and tuck them away somewhere, right? It's like, oh, there's just this thing that happens sometimes, and I haven't quite figured out how to get rid of it, but it's not completely stopping me. It's just like, oh, okay, well, we'll just set that to the side. Okay, cool. Those are bugs in my process. Ideally, I wouldn't be running into this, that, and the other, but looking at them, it's kind of a feature, not a bug. And then you've got the soft locks, and then you've got the sitting there staring at the white screen. You've got the writer's block, which I wrote a song with a buddy once when we were struggling with writer's block, where we called it a block of marble, right? We were like, writer's block, a block of marble. That was the lyric. That was the go-to. I like that lyric. I thought we did a good job with that, because it's not really that there's nothing you can do. It's just like you have no idea what to do with all of the possibilities available to you. You are a sculptor looking at a block of marble for the first time, going, whoa, that's a nice block of marble. Sure would be a shame if I ruined it. I better not hit it. It's such a nice rectangle. I better leave it alone. Because, it's got to be really hard to get another block of marble. Except, it's not hard to get another block of marble. They're everywhere. It's okay. You can, maybe not a block of marble. Maybe that is hard. But when it comes to game ideas, it's fine. They're all over the place. And you can just reset. It doesn't ruin it. Just start again. You're fine. Now, what I was saying was these moments where you get frozen, I think, are not what we often characterize them as. They are not a fundamental problem with you. They are not a I can't create things. They are not a I just don't know what I'm doing, or I have no ideas, or I'm just not good at this, or whatever, blah, 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 blah. It's not any of that, in my opinion. I think that what it is a problem of process. It is an expectation problem as well. But more than anything, I don't know your individual process, right? More than anything, it is a problem of process. For me, that means expectation. For me, that means initial design. It means I'm approaching it with a certain design in my head, and I'm doing one of a few things wrong, right? Depending on the scope of the idea, I'm either failing to map it out and going in blind, or I am biting off more than I can chew. I take a big bite and I go, uh-oh, I'm going to get some TMJ after this one. This is not good. And lately in my process, I don't even bite. I look at it and I go, I can't finish that meal. That's a huge meal. So I've been soft locked on big ideas lately. I've been sitting here looking at big ideas going, I don't know, I can't quite get that down. Right? I can't quite consume that idea or that idea or that idea, so I get soft locked on them. That's been the problem, in my process lately. And so I was like, I was stuck on that. I was in this mode of, I finished one game and released it, and then I had some little miscellaneous things, and now I have to do something else. Now I have to do something bigger. Now I have to go after some other pursuit, and I kind of executed this process of I have to do a bigger project. I have to swing bigger. I have to pursue some loftier goals. And that hasn't been working for me. So it's time to terminate that process and try something else. And then I can come back and turn that one back on, right? From a different angle, with a little bit more experience, with a little bit more RAM or processing power or something, whatever it is that's making me lock on that one. But right now, I'm trying to run that and I'm not getting there. And I think for me, that's probably mostly a skill issue. There's so many different things intimidating me when I pursue one of these goals, and I need to be able to look at those things and go, well, I've got that on lock, and I've got that on lock, and I've got that on lock, and not worry about them, and then move forward. Because right now I keep wanting to make a JRPG of some sort. I keep going, well, what if I, do this with this combat system and this world exploration and this and that and the other? And I'm going, okay, how am I going to transition between scenes? All the questions appear in my head all at once. I go, how do I transition between scenes? How do I manage an inventory system? How do I manage the level ups? How do I do this? How do I do that? How do I do that? I have all the questions. I have none of the answers. And I go, this is all too much because I like to have the answers. So for me, one of the things I can do is come up with some answers. Now, I could sit down and I could try to map out everything, but then it's a different kind of overwhelming because I don't have the knowledge necessary to create a functional map. And I know that. So then that doesn't really work for me. So then the question is, well, what do I really need in order to get started? What do I really need in order to move forward on a bigger idea? What I need is to get some practice with some smaller ideas. The reason that I loved making Soot, my platformer, is because it was so simple and I was passionate about it. And it's not that I loved the idea, it's that I loved the process of making it. It was, oh, this is cool, this is exciting, I'm doing it. And right now, every time I sit down to do game dev, I'm in the soft lock. I sit down to do it, and I go, hey, I don't know, maybe I come up with a little one day, little quick thing, and then I go, yeah, I don't know, I'm stuck again. It's like, well, then why do you keep running that program? And it's easy to fall into the trap of, oh, well, I must not be good at this, right? I must need to do something else or whatever, right? I mean, that can be the case. It depends, blah, blah, blah. That's not what's going on here with me. What's going on here with me is, oh, buddy, I need to take a second and just recognize what worked for me already and do that. For some reason, I got 2 executables on my desktop, and I got one of them that is make a game, and it runs perfectly. I open it, and it takes a long time to run, and then we get there. I have another executable that says make a game version 2.0, and I run that executable, and it freezes, and I keep trying to run that executable. And then every once in a while, I run a different one that's like make a tiny game, and I run that, and I love it, and it goes great, and it feels fantastic, right? Just like a little like prototype thing, or just an experiment. Like I have those, I made those executables too, and then boom, 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 great, cool. And then I go back and I go, okay, well, let me play make a game version 2, because that's how I do it now. And then it freezes, and I get stuck. Okay, go back to the old one. Stop trying version 2. It's broken. I go, oh, but there's all these new features in version 2. Version 2 says that it's going to make a bigger, better game, right? Version 2 says that it's going to do this, that, the other. It's not gonna. It's a lie. Go back to version 1 and then, develop a new process. Maybe make version 1.2, version 1.3. I've skipped too many versions. I did too many major changes. I jumped straight ahead when I shouldn't have. It was not time for version 2.0. I need to keep making some stuff. It's not time to revamp my entire creative process. I made one game, man. I don't need to believe that it's time to make some huge thing. And it's getting in my way. And frankly, it's ridiculous. What an absurd thing. To love doing something so much, to have a process that works so well, and then to go into it and go, okay, well, now I have to do it, but better, and then not really have clear ideas of what but better means, and just go bigger project, make good, big project, good game, go. Dude, relax. So I do have an idea of what my 1.1 of making a game is, and that idea involves some note-taking. as I'm working on learning new skills, I'm going to make efforts to intentionally develop development skills, right? I'm going to make efforts to not just practice development, but to um, learn fundamental skills and memorize some fundamental facts, right? Whether it be about navigating Godot, which is, not that high, like that's a very specific fact, not that useful, but it is where I'm going to start because it's very clear and obvious. And then some deeper level stuff. How to explain this? Some more fundamental facts about game development, about programming, about how things work in general. So I'm going to work on that. I'm going to take some notes as I build things. I'm going, what did I learn today at school? And I'll write them down, and I'll make some note cards out of it, because that is a process that has been helping me a lot in learning electrical skills. And I'm taking value from that, and I'm carrying it over into my game development. So, long story short, there are ways that I try to develop things that have bugs in them that are fine and cool, and I can polish them out. Maybe those bugs are things that are leading to the freezes. Maybe if I polish out some of those other more charming, goofy bugs, we'll be all right. But if messing with one of those creates a new freeze, then don't worry about it, go back. And then there are bugs in my process that completely shatter it, and we don't want those. And then, it's okay to have some inefficiencies and some goofiness, but we can't be having these soft logs, these things that completely freeze the joy and the love and the creativity. So I'm trying to get rid of those, and that required a little soft reset and just going back to the old version and tacking some stuff on top of it, where I go, let's experiment with this. Let's experiment with that. Let's spice it up a little bit to make it more interesting to play with, because I don't want to do the exact same thing as I did last time. And the old version is, fundamentally, what is the easiest idea that I can kind of learn stuff from and play with? What is the smallest idea that I go, that kind of seems interesting, let's play with that? It's a fundamental that I can tie in and start moving forward with. The reason I did Soot was because I could learn a little bit about animation. That was the real challenge of that game, was some simple animation and some sound design. And I was like, okay, let me just put this into a platformer. Boom, done, great. And actually, sound design was the main motivation, just for the record. And then I added animation to that. Then I was excited about what I was learning. So now I'm going to get excited about learning something else. And that will make my process at least more enjoyable, because, God, you can't be doing a really unenjoyable, really frustrating process. At that point, why are you even doing it? Find a way to make it enjoyable. Harder, easier than it sounds, harder than it sounds. It's a little odd, right? Easier said than done, yes, but not actually that hard. Just requires a little bit of self-exploration, which can be tricky. And I don't mean self-exploration like talking about it and navel-gazing. I mean experimenting, and maybe a little bit of navel-gazing, but not entirely. There has to be at least a little experimentation. That's about it. I hope that was helpful for you. Let's get to our challenges for the week and wrap things up. For those of you who are curious, I am still loving Linux. It's nice and clean. It's good for doing my development stuff, partially because I just don't have all my old files on it, so I'm starting fresh, which feels really good. And then as far as gaming on it goes, Hades 2 runs like a dream. I got Hades 2. It's amazing. I love it. It's great. I installed Final Fantasy VII Remake and Rebirth. I installed the wrong one on accident because the naming convention on those games is horrible. And then I installed the correct one, which is less supported, and it had a little, I didn't even go fight anything or whatever, but it immediately had a little lag, a little texture stuff, and so it's probably not going to play that well or that smoothly, but it does run. I might play with that a little bit at some point, but it ran without me having to do a bunch of tweaking, which is really all that I want at this moment. I'm not that picky about graphical fidelity. It would be nice, but it's not really what makes me enjoy the game. And right now I'm more interested in learning to use Linux and experimenting with games compatibility on it, and kind of seeing if 5 years from now I'll be able to completely abandon Windows, can't speak, because it would be nice to abandon Windows, at least for gaming and everything. That's why my Linux side of things is my gaming side of things, by the way. Yeah, I'm doing all my gaming on Linux, and then the Windows is basically just for this podcast, because I'm more interested in learning about gaming on Linux than I am interested in having maximum gaming performance. I've never really cared that much about that, oddly enough. It's not really what I come to games for. I'm not really there for the visual spectacle. It needs to run, and it needs to be very legible and look pretty good, but like, I can even have frame rate drops and go, okay, whatever. Like significant ones. I'm just not that picky about performance. I don't know why. Anyway, here's your challenge for the week. I would say, look at, well, easy. Look at process, right? And see if there's anything that's soft locking you and get rid of it. Try rolling it back to a previous version that works, or trying a new angle that you've never tried before, right? And I mentioned this vaguely earlier while talking about games. If you're having a soft lock that you don't know how to get out of, that you don't know how to deal with, if you're going, I don't know what the heck to do with this, talk to somebody else you know who makes stuff. Talk to somebody who has some understanding of it, or even not somebody who makes stuff, but somebody who's a good emotional support for you. Connect with other people. Ultimately, that's kind of what we're trying to do here when we make stuff. Like, it's not just about doing your thing. I don't think it is. I think it's about connecting with others. So take the risk of connecting directly with others about, creating stuff, and see how it goes. That's everything I've got for you this week. Until then, get out there, make some stuff, and have fun with it. Thanks for joining me, as always. Bye-bye.